Hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Late Challenge. I'm Mo Stewart and that is Gareth Roberts. And first of all, I've got some good news for you. Since the last time we were here, Liverpool have not lost any football games. Hooray! There was actually a game at Anfield in that time as well, which both of us were at, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's been a few announcements by around about the club, some from the club, some from a certain player that we're going to be talking about. It was made us sad in slightly different ways. We're going to preview the next time the Reds do actually play football against Man City in the FA Cup as well. And we may have time for an update from our good friend Hairy Hands, and you may well find out why there's a third microphone there. But before we get into all that, I want to tell you a little story. In the summer 2004, I was working in a really small phone shop in my hometown. There was only 4 of us on the staff. Our manager, Richie, me, a lad called Mohammed, and a lady called Maureen. So yes, that's Mo, and Mo. Every time Richie called us, shout, Mo! We all turned round. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. It did my head in. I had that time after time, day after day. I felt like I was in a Monty Python sketch for about 3 months while I had that job until I left. I finally moved to the holy land of Liverpool. I thought, thank God, I'm not going to have to deal with that again. Fast forward 13 years, what happens? Liverpool signed a fella called Mo. And I seen him, thought he was pretty good, but I'm not going to lie, I was fuming. I was like, oh, fucking hell, not this again. If he's shit, every single person is going to be going, oh, Mo Salah, you're just like that shit Mo Salah. Well, guess what? He wasn't shit. He was very, very, very good. To the point where I'm absolutely delighted to share my name with him. To the point where I've got this and about 3 other different T-shirts that all have his name or his face on them. I love the fella more than anyone else does. He has made Mo cool again. Thank God for that. And I love him for that. Every time I go to the AXA and I get a taxi, there's a fella there when I get in. It's like, oh, I thought I was picking up Mo Salah. And I smile. I mean, I roll my eyes a bit, but I smile. Because, like, who wouldn't want to get in a taxi with Mo Salah? Like, that would be the coolest thing ever. So, from me as a Mo, and speaking for all my fellow Mo's, Mo, thank you. I love you. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to start talking about Mo Salah, unsurprisingly. Obviously, in our midweek show, you and the boys did a really good bit about Mo Salah, but I wanted to kind of add a little snifter in there as well, because you mentioned in that show that not many people were expecting him to be amazing. I'd go further than that. I'd say there were quite a lot of people expecting him to be bad based on what happened at Chelsea. It's mad to think back to those days, isn't it?
Yeah, there was quite a big shrug, wasn't there, really? I see you didn't mention Mo Molam there.
Another cracking Mo, by the way. I've got one of my Mo Salah T-shirts has got her name on it as well.
Is right. But yeah, it was met with a shrug, wasn't it? Let's be honest, in that, you know, it was like, well, there's a lad who's already come to the Premier League, failed and gone away again. And it was like, yeah, sound, he's at Fiorentina. You know, there was lots of shrugging, lots of meh, lots of like, you know, people weren't that bothered. I'm weren't sure. And then even when, you know, I can, obviously it was at the early games he played, and I think, was it Watford, I think, or something in the first game?
Yeah,
maybe 3-3, yeah, something like that. But you know what? Straight from the off, he's scoring goals and he's getting stuck in, and it's 44 goals in his first season. But I can remember, like, even when he was on a decent run of goals, people were still getting sure about it, because I was just all pace, can't actually finish and stuff like that. So there's lots of cynicism, but that's just football fans and you know, both from the team that the player plays for and opposition, you know what I mean? Like, so like, you know, anyone signs for Everton, then of course you say the shite. Anyone signs for Man United, you say the shite. So, you know, people obviously said that who don't like Liverpool, but it was from Liverpool fans as well. Not that he was shite, but certainly like a worry that
skepticism.
He'd already been here,
yeah,
and he'd gone away, and could he actually cut it in this league? Just on that as well, I think, like, you know, I don't know where we're at now, because we've not had any of those big insight pieces for a while. Funny that. But when we do get those big insight pieces into how Liverpool recruit and do whatever, you know, during the Klopp era, there seemed to be a lot of players that we signed who had like a bit of a backstory where they'd had to like beat some adversity.
Yeah.
And you know, I always think I always like that, because Mo was obviously part of that, in that it's obviously driven him that, you know, he went away, you know, he's almost failed, if you like, at Chelsea. And then he's got this fire in him of, I'll prove you wrong. And I think that's why, like, you know, I mentioned on the other show that we did in the week that, you know, we come back every start of every season looking fitter, sharp, and it was like he always had that fire burning inside him. And I think that's what's been difficult for him when his powers are on the wane. I mean, you know, and that's probably goes a long way to explain why he felt he was thrown under the bus and felt like he had to do the outburst, you know, post Leeds and all the rest of it. He's driven to an unbelievable level. And I said this the other day as well. I'll stop repeating myself. I said the other day. But by the way, go and check out our new show.
Absolutely, it's very good.
Your Round, if you haven't seen it, is on the YouTube channel. But yeah, that fire is what took him to these levels, like over and over and over and over again.
It was, and I mean, I think you make a really good point about that kind of the adversity that the players go through, because one of the other things we normally hear in those insight pieces is how much value they put on the character of players. And obviously we always think about it as being the no dickheads thing, which, you know, as still seems to have endured based on the first who got in. But that level of they've had to scrap for everything that they've earned, it doesn't seem to have been prioritised as much in the current crop. I mean,
yeah, maybe not.
I would say Kirkes is probably the only real example, because he had this thing at AC Milan where it didn't go well, and then he had to go back and he's come through. And again, you could kind of see it in his attitude. He is that one who's like, he's always willing to kind of scrap a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe these things that we think are kind of like not that important intangibles, maybe they are that important.
I think they are. I think it's not even just football, is it? I heard a great little quote earlier. It's not really to do with this, but it just proper resonated with me, and I thought it's brilliant. That so Clive Tilsley's done an interview for someone somewhere, and you know, it just pops up, doesn't it? You're scrolling or whatever, and sorry to whoever did the interview, I don't know who did it, and so I can't direct anyone towards it because I can't remember. But he just popped up and he was talking about his time in Liverpool, because obviously he was sports editor at Radio City for a long time. And as ever, he spoke really well, but he came out with this line that I really loved. And he said, in Liverpool, there are so many people who are a poet, a politician, or a musician. They just don't actually get to do it as a job. Yeah. And he's right. Like, you know, that sort of fire that is in so many people in this city is what we want to see in our players, is what we want to see on the pitch. And when we get it and when we see it, and we absolutely fall in love with the people who display that. And that is why, for me, Mo Salah does go down in history as one of the best players to ever play for Liverpool Football Club, because he wrung absolutely everything out of himself over and over and over again. And you can tell that he's like, you know, we don't even need to hear the stories about what he's doing in his life. You can tell he has been the ultimate professional all the way through.
Absolutely.
Adding stuff to his game and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, just, you know, I think I've seen some quotes from Robbo just saying, like, you know, puts other people to shame type of thing.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
And you can imagine that. You can imagine that, because, you know, like, how can you just look at the standards he set for 9 years? Like, it's, you know, it's obviously a shame. It obviously feels sad. At least we get these, what is it, potentially 5 or 6 games to see him still at Anfield, and, you know, there'll be a bit of a long goodbye. I'm glad that we've got that. I'm glad that we'll get to do that properly.
Me too.
There's nothing worse than, you know, someone who's given so much to a football club sort of just disappearing in the summer unexpectedly, and you don't get to say your proper goodbyes. When you're so emotionally attached, you need that. We all need that little, that, you know, look him in the eyes one more time, tell him thank you.
Even when we thought that it might come in January, I think he's as aware of that as anyone. So even when we thought, oh, well, this is it, there's no way this is sustainable, there was still that one game against Brighton, wasn't it, where he basically said, I'm going to invite my mum. So, like, you know, if anyone wants to have one last goodbye, it might be this one. So, yeah, I never thought that we'd have a situation like that. And I do think that there are some players, it's almost impossible to be forgotten in the same way, because there's obviously turnover. Like, I think we've said goodbye to at least one player every one of the last 4 or 5 seasons, and loads of them have really meant loads to us. but then there are some who are special. Like I must admit, I did put in the agenda, like going back to what people were saying when he signed. I know sometimes we do like a bit of Schadenfreude on this show, and I printed out some of my favourite quotes some of the players, some people said about him. One fella called him the Egyptian Stuart Downing. Sorry, Stuart. Someone said he was the Egyptian Matt Jarvis, which is even worse. Just a shit Marco Marin. I don't even remember who Marco Marin is. There's another one here. It's like, oh, he didn't just flop at Chelsea. He's generally just not very good. Not what Liverpool should be signing if they have any ambition. Well, yeah. Sat on the bench at Chelsea and Roma. Let's spend 30 million plus and hope he suddenly turns into Messi. Well, yeah, he kind of did, actually. But, again, all of this, what it really does illustrate is the fact that, look, we at Liverpool, most of the best players in the last 5-10 years in particular, haven't been superstars when they signed for the club. They've become superstars at Liverpool. And signing from the top shelf isn't something that we've naturally done. They did it a little bit this summer with Wirtz and with Isak. But I think when it comes to how and who we replace Mo Salah, this is an important point because I've been having a long think about this over the last couple of days, and I can see both arguments in terms of, do you want another, not quite unheralded, but like an up-and-coming player, someone who's hungry to prove themselves, who can grow into a superstar, probably not going to cost the world, probably not going to ask for the world in wages, but has the ability to rise to that level? Or do you need a ready-made superstar, someone who can already handle the output and the pressure of replacing one of the greatest players ever to play for this team?
I think you're getting. I don't think you're getting a like for like. I think one, there's not really any there that are probably gettable. Some of the names that you see and you're like, well, is that definite? I mean, I'm sure, I don't want to get into the whole, well, Liverpool thing, because, yeah, that is a thing, but equally, Bayern Munich are quite a big club themselves, like, as an example. You don't just sort of trample all over them, is my point. I think it's more likely, knowing the people that run the club and all the rest of it, albeit that, some of the people involved in this kind of process, their future isn't exactly set in stone either, but you'd think that it would be someone young, someone who, could reach those levels in time. Or it could just be as well that, they think you replace Mo Salah by, having 2 or 3 players, essentially. You share his goals out. You don't have the superstar model that we sort of have ended up with a £400,000 a week player. So maybe they sort of have done that already with the players they sign. But we literally do need someone to play on that side of the pitch with pace, who can beat a man, who can create things, who can track back and all of those things. So you would expect, of course, that someone comes in. It's going to be, unfortunately, one of those, isn't it, where there's going to be a lot of pressure on them, therefore, but it is what it is. You're going to have to handle that if you play for Liverpool anyway. One thing I would say as well, I think as time goes on and more and more money gets invested in finding the players first, if you like, and that's obviously happens, times a million in our lifetime. I mean, no longer are you, very rarely anyway, are you like pulling gems from lower league and non-league. Everyone's at like Liverpool when they're just being born if they're half decent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they sort of have a look at them for over a long period of time, and then let them go if they don't think they're going to make it. So, what I'm trying to drive at really is there's less and less secrets now, isn't there, in football? And part of me doesn't like that really, because just to get nostalgic for a second, but I loved it when you used to say World Cups on back in the day, and you'd be surprised by someone playing for Cameroon or whatever, you know what I mean, and like and then all of a sudden you're doing the Roger Miller dance yourself, but you'd never heard of them before, or whatever. But like now it's just like there's so much football. You've got the internet, you've got people who are almost like behave like a scout and put stuff all over the internet. You've got people on the radio who are experts on certain fields. we get the French expert on, we get the German expert on, we get the South American. Tim Vickery's got that box, by the way. And he's on absolutely everything. But you know what I mean? Like, and so like you'd almost end up with no secrets. You'd almost end up like, it's just a case of who can persuade them to come to you as opposed to others. It's hard to get that like sort of.
I don't think it helps them. I don't think it helps them either.
No.
I think because then, like you say, there are people out there who've already kind of staked their reputation on, I think this is going to be the next big thing. And then suddenly, indirectly, without them having to do anything different, there's all this extra pressure on them to say, okay, well, this fella seems to think you're the hot shit and he's got a great reputation. So let's see what you got, sort of thing. And I just think sometimes you need to allow players time to breathe. Like, this is one thing I always say that Brentford do really, really well. Like, they're always signing the next big thing the season before he becomes the next big thing. So, like, Igor Thiago, like, he's banging him in this season. Like, he didn't sign this summer. We signed last summer.
Yeah.
And they've given him time. Yes, obviously, injuries played a part in that. But he's had time to get used to being in England, get used to, 12:30 kickoffs and 2 domestic cups and all the other random things that England has to offer. And get used to the way that they want to play, because there hasn't been a massive amount of change between Thomas Frank and Keith Andrews. And now look at him. Now he's flying. And it's like, that's the best method. And to be fair,
you don't get that time at Liverpool, though, do you?
No.
That's the thing. You just don't, because there's so much, the spotlight's so big, the expectation's so big, the size of the club is so big. We are still right now champions. But you know what I mean? So there's an expectation to sort of compete, to win, to be the best all the time, and there isn't very much patience all round, is there? That's just where we are now, both in football and as a society. So, it'll be interesting to see where it goes all round. I mean, it just adds to there were so many questions about this summer anyway, and now there's one more. It wasn't a shock that he's announced that he's going. I think most people could sort of work out that that's where we were headed after that bust up. To me, it makes sense. I mean, I don't really sort of get the line that I've seen so many times, albeit that it creates hits, headlines and all the rest of it. But is it mad that they're letting him go and they've shook on it? I just don't really think it is, because the size of the salary is going to put off anyone who would potentially want to take him on. And then add to that his performance this season. If Mo Salah was at his peak, which was literally only last season, because that was his second best season ever, then it would get it, because the current data would point to the fact that you're buying one of the best players in the world. But the current data now doesn't point to that.
No.
There's a bit of a sort of almost like a damaged goods thing. The contract's huge. We know there's been a bust up. That's in public as well.
Absolutely.
So that's knowledge that if you're negotiating for him, you're going to say, well, I know you don't really want him.
Yeah.
I know that happened. I know that there's beef behind the scenes. So I'm not paying top whack. And I think in the end, they've just thought it's easier to take 20 odd million off next season's wage bill than try and sit there and get a transfer fee for him. And look, I think it's right. I think you can go on forever about sort of modern football and all that, but to me, it seems right. It seems the right thing. He's given us 9 years. In old money, if you got to 10, you got the testimonial and all that. We've won so many trophies with him around. He's been central to many of those as well, obviously. So I'm all right with it. I've got. It didn't cross my mind for a second that we're doing something wrong by letting him go.
And I think as well, when you look back to the way last season played out with Trent and the way that they did eventually claw back that 10 million, I don't have any prior knowledge of this. I need to say that out loud. But I'd be very surprised if Liverpool didn't at least put some feelers out during the January transfer window and probably came back to find out, actually, the market isn't where we thought it was. Yeah. So, like you say, rather than it being any drawn-out, protracted situation where it might leave a sour taste in anyone's mouth, let's all just, like you say, shake hands and say, thank you for your service, mate. Go on to wherever you want to go.
Shout to Josh in the comments, who's revived an old one for me here. I've heard pretty much every lookalike for me that is going. So he's thrown one in. It's not new, mate. I've heard it before. He says, it's just dawned on me that Robbo's a better looking version of Woody Harrelson. I have had that. I've had that from my mates before, to be fair. I've got someone currently as well, every time I go for a pint, before or after the game. I've got someone who's decided the Eddie Howe. That's not a new one either. I've had Eddie Howe before.
I'd rather be Woody than Eddie, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some worse ones as well, but we won't get into them. But yeah, thanks for all your comments. Seems a nice crew today, which is nice. Maybe we've all just calmed down a little bit.
A little bit.
I know I have.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, actually. We're at the Legends game, which is going to come on to talk about. We've got a celebrity fan, Sammy Lee. Are you, if you're watching Sammy?
Oh, does he watch?
Yeah. He came up. He came up to me. He's like, "Your mate was a bit narky last week, wasn't he?" I was like, "Yeah,
he's right.
He's
I
like
love
that
that.
sometimes."
I love that.
But
I was right.
Yeah,
that's boss.
Absolute legend, Sammy.
Yeah. He's a brilliant fella.
Speaking of legends, see what I did there. So yeah, we were both at the game on Saturday. It's been a while since I've been to one of those Legends game, and my main motivation was because I'm writing an article about something. I wanted to talk to some of the former players, but there's also been a lot of stress involved in watching Liverpool this season. So I was actually quite looking forward to a low stress game, and just even getting to the ground. Like, I got there about 90 minutes before kickoff, and you could just sense the different vibe. Like,
yeah, of course.
there was. I mean, it sounds horrible to say, but there were more people smiling. Noticeably more people smiling, and it made me laugh as well that there were people congregating in different places to where they normally do. Because, like, obviously when you go to Anfield, more often than not, everyone's got their own routines, and most of them involve either being in the pub or getting a pie or whatever. There were loads of people just like, I was walking back through past the Cop Bar around the front, and so I was like, why have all these people here? Like, there's not normally that many people here. It was cool to think about all these people who were doing this, who were like doing it for the first time, kind of really excited about every little element of being at Anfield. And like, that kind of stuff is contagious, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I took my youngest lad to his first game. I mean, you know, obviously in my head I'm going, it's not a proper Liverpool game, but I mean, it's like, it's his first time at Anfield with his dad, isn't it? So it's still a nice moment, and it was great. Look, he's only 5, so I knew that I would be up against it a little bit. So that's why it was sort of the perfect moment, really, because, you know, if it's the Premier League or whatever, and, you know, he's saying like, Dad, I'm hungry, Dad, I need a piss, whatever, I'm going to be like, lad,
we got to corner it.
but for this, you know, like I've never been too invested in the Legends games because, you know, there's nothing riding on it, truly, is there? Let's be honest. It hasn't got that stress that comes with, you know, a Premier League game or a Champions League game. So it was just nice to go with them, and it was like, you know, obviously drove and took him down because, you know, I wasn't going to say, come on, we'll walk him from Sandhills.
We're not been a good start.
And, you know, as soon as he's like the stadium was in sight and all that, he was like, whoa, that's big, that, you know what I mean? And like, you know, there's all those just nice little moments where he's like, whoa, this is great, and like he absolutely, and this was no prompt from me, this is his reaction, a 5-year-old. The thing he loved the most that he's been going on about since, he loved doing You'll Never Walk Alone. Yeah. He loved, like, we got either end of the scarf, and obviously it was on a bit of a diagonal. Because he's all the way down there and I'm up here. But, you know, he loved that. Yeah. He was made up with that.
That's so cool.
And he was like, that was so good, that bit, Dad. And I was like, yeah. And then a boss little thing happened as well. So he's gone to Disneyland Paris with his mum. It's half term, innit? So they've gone there. And she messaged me to say, you'll never guess who he saw in the airport. I said, oh, go on. And she said, he saw the goalie, Westerveld. I said, oh, right. And she went, yeah, you know, we realised it was him. And he went running over to him before I could do anything and went, I watched you play football the other day. You had a green shirt on.
Amazing.
And apparently Westerveld was made up as well. Yeah. Not least because, you know, he's probably not mentioned ice on the ball and all those other things that some Reds might hold against it. But you know what I mean? He's had a nice little moment. So yeah, it was great, and it was a reminder, I think, as well, certainly for me, that, you know, with all the the ills of the modern game and all the stuff that winds you up and you know, makes you think, what am I doing here, and why do I do it, and why do I spend all this money and devote all this time? You know, just those little moments of, like, it's like the Bobby Robson quote, isn't it? Like, you know, he climbs the steps for the first time, he sees the grass for the first time, and he without knowing it, he's fell in love type of thing. It's that kind of stuff. It's boss. It's spine tingling stuff, and it was great. Even, like, you know, when he was doing the "You'll Never Walk Alone," lots of people were just like turning around and smiling, and you know what I mean, like, oh, he's doing a great job there, and all that kind of stuff. And he was made up. And look, I knew, and like, you know, I knew it would happen. He's 5. He hasn't got the concentration span. The iPad was with us. Second half the iPad came out because it's like,
well, look,
Dad, can I watch Lego Star Wars now? It's like, fair enough. So, you know, he wasn't waxing lyrical about Thiago's passing or the link up with Steven Gerrard, funnily enough, at 5.
We have to remember as well, like, the football isn't really what we're there for in that respect. Like, we like seeing the old guys, like obviously Steven Gerrard, you mentioned Thiago, they were probably the 2 main star of the show in terms of the people wanted to come and see. Although Peter Crouch also got a really big cheer as well, which I hope you enjoy, because I did as well. But, like, it's almost like a thank you for everything that they've done when they were
nice,
proper footballers.
And obviously, ultimately as well, it's a big money spinner for the Liverpool FC Foundation, which does some fantastic work. Really do. You know, to be selling over 60,000 for you know, essentially like a testimonial style game, it's absolutely amazing, absolutely brilliant. Shows you the depth of the support and the amount of people that want to go to Anfield, and it's all for a fantastic cause on top. So, yeah, there's not much you can say bad about it all. I'll tell you what I thought was absolutely hilarious, because, you know, like, I obviously think about myself, if you like, in terms of how I act, what I do, my thoughts, where they come from, all that deep shit. And ultimately, I've decided that, you know, you're probably like, you know, your personality's formed at a fairly early stage, and then you just become different versions of yourself as you go on. But ultimately, there's always this like core there, which I think is going to be pretty much the same no matter what. You know, you'd have to do a lot of work to change it, is what I'm saying. And so that's a long way round to say Steven Gerrard is definitely still Steven Gerrard, because when he was bollocking Ryan Babel for not being in the right place for the 1-2, I was like, that's hilarious. Yeah. You know, it's a Legends game, and he's like,
it's funny, like, I was in the mix zone afterwards, and we got to talk to some of them. We got to talk to Babel, to talk to Dirk Kuyt, talk to Aurelio, and you could sense whenever one of us said, "Oh, well, obviously the score doesn't matter." They were like, "No, we wanted to win." They were annoyed that they got back to 2-2.
You could tell.
And like what you're saying about Gerrard, like a couple of them mentioned the fact, like, yeah, you know, Stevie's still shouting at him, and like, so I said to Dirk Kuyt, like, obviously, you kind of played a right back that often, but like he had to go a right back, didn't he? Because who was it? Was it Skirt, or was it, he got injured, and all the defenders have been on in the first half.
Quite works hard though. It's no skin off his nose to go and do that.
Oh, this is it, and that's kind of what he said. He was just like, yeah, the team needed me to do it, so he did it, and it was cool that, like, even in that moment where they're kind of, like you say, coming back to celebrate their careers previously, like, it doesn't take long for that competitive spirit to get going. Like I mentioned when Crouch came on, like, you could sense that he was desperate to score, because like in his first Legends game he scored 2 and they won 2-0, so he was thinking, I can become like the new Legends striker sort of thing. And yeah, he never quite got a chance at it, and you could just sense he was desperate to get one. But someone who did get the chance to shoot, Jay Speary,
belt to that.
Yeah,
he's a good lad, Jay.
You
know, I've done stuff with him in the past, and you know, interviewed him and stuff for the rap back in the day. And, you know, like, I've done little bits of, like, say, like LFC TV or whatever, and he's been on and things, and he's a really nice lad.
Yeah, yes.
And, you know, obviously he's got a job at the club and all the rest of it. And I think you could tell that, you know, he's still playing football a bit there.
Yes.
Compared to some of the others, but it's a belter of a strike, isn't it?
It is.
And, you know, I don't think he'd scored, had he, for the Reds at Anfield, so... You know, okay, it's only a Legends game, but, you know, you could see he was like blowing kisses to his family and all that, and it's like that's a boss moment. You know, imagine like going home and going like, you know, see,
well, yeah, well,
I am good.
So the really cool thing about it, you're right, he is a really good fella. Like, I see him around about
he's
all the time, and he's one of those you'll always stop to say hello and stuff like that. So I was made up for him, and Yeah, we saw him out in the mix zone after, and he had the ball for starters.
It's right.
So that tells you how much he cared about it. And then Chloe Blossom, she filmed
I saw
it.
that, yeah.
She
showed him it, yeah.
Yeah, it was so good. Like, he was very much just like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Like genuinely made up. And
Yeah, it was a great strike.
Yeah.
I was in the Annie Road as well, so got a good view of that one. And yeah, it made up for him.
Absolutely. And obviously Thiago got the other goal. And I mean, it's funny actually.
Finished that, by the way.
Yeah. There were lots of tweets and stuff about saying, oh, Thiago's a real player. And we were like, you can still do a job now. It's like, I mean, I think to be fair to him, he looked fitter in that game than he did for his last 2 years at Liverpool. And that's kind of the thing, isn't it?
Paddle serving him well. Yeah, it's... I mean, look, you see some stuff and you're like, are you serious? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was good. It was in a Legends game. He clearly had class. We always knew he had class. And it stands out when you've got loads of space and you're playing against 45, 50-year-old fellas who don't have the pace he once did. But drop him into the Premier League might be a bit of a different story. So yeah, but no, it was good, wasn't it? It was another nice moment, really, because I'm sure, I'm certain that all that didn't unfold exactly how we would have wanted it.
Of course
Certainly not how we wanted it. And he's got unbelievable technique, hasn't he? He's unbelievable footballer, and it was just a shame that we didn't get to see him play more often. So yeah, it was another nice moment of a boss player, a boss fella coming back to Anfield and showing everyone what he can do.
I really hope that we do start to see him more in Legends games, because it just feels like the kind of football that really suits him. Like, in terms of obviously, like you mentioned, the slower pace, but the skills and gifts that he's got as a footballer, the kind of things that will get you off your seat. When I was watching him, I was reminded of all of those little moments, because I always used to say whenever he played for Liverpool, there would always be at least one moment in every 90-minute game that I'd be able to go home thinking about. It was just, even sometimes it'd be a pass, sometimes it'd be just a drop on the shoulder or like a little nutmeg.
Who was it he scored that one against? It was in Europe, wasn't it?
The Porto one.
Porto.
The wormhole goal, as I call it.
It's just unbelievable. Like, that is just so true and pure, and just you're like, just to be able to hit a football like that and it just rise and just
perfect.
It'd be still going now, wouldn't it? If there wasn't a net, it was just gorgeous goal. Like.
And I often think about, for players, particularly at the end of their careers, what it must be like after going through, particularly players like him who've played for big clubs and have been really popular at big clubs and used to getting 50, 60,000 people singing your name, singing your song and all that kind of stuff. And then suddenly it's gone. Yeah. It must be such a head fuck to go through, because even if you think about other walks of life, so movie stars, politicians, massive celebrities in all kinds of walks of life, very few of them get to experience 60,000 people singing at them.
I know. It must be mad. I mean, I can remember, I don't know why this is the first thing that comes to mind, but it is. I can remember us talking on here once before about the Beatles and just saying, imagine being the Beatles, imagine being any of the Beatles, imagine what it would have been like to deal with when you packed it in, when you're like, right, I'm done now. I want to just have the quiet life. There isn't one.
No.
You know what I mean? And obviously, George went off living in all kinds of mad places. McCartney moved up to some mad place in the top of Scotland somewhere or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's they want an escape from it, but then you wonder, well, when they got there, were they
yeah,
it was actually quite nice. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I totally get it. It must really, I mean, it definitely does mess with your mind. I remember interviewing years ago Rob Jones, and obviously he had to retire at 27 with all the issues he had with his knee, etc. And I went out to his house and sat down with him and did a big interview with him, and absolutely sound fella, and he's ended up sort of doing little bits of coaching back at the academy and stuff like that, which is really good. Great player. But he said, I remember him saying to me, he's it's just been really hard to deal with, because he said, I've gone from, I'm a professional footballer, I'm we're travelling, we're in the changing rooms, we're in the training, we're on buses, we're in hotels, you're always with the lads, you've got that constant, you're walking around with a smile on your face all the time, you're having a laugh, and then bang, silence. And he was he said, you're with me now in my house, and my missus is at work, my kids aren't here, what am I meant to do? And it was just like, and loads of them struggle with that, don't they? They just struggle with like, it's almost like, you know, it's a bit mad to compare it to the army, but what the reason I'm comparing it to the army is the routine.
Yeah, the proximity of the
people
same
doing
people.
stuff for you, and you having a very determined task that you've got to do. Go to training, come home, play games, come home. You know what I mean? And you've got this constant, like your life's almost ran for you to a big extent, and then for it to just go bang, gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, now what?
And you see the same faces, and you're in a very close proximity with the same people who you end up getting to know and feel like they are family more than your actual family, and then suddenly they might move to, you know, complete other countries and all that kind of thing. So yeah, no, I never really thought of it in comparison to the army, but that works. I'm into that.
Thanks, man.
Now, obviously, we talk about how rare it is for players to have 60,000 people screaming their name. It's even more rare for managers. We've got to talk about the big man coming back. Big Jurgen was back and in full effect. It was great to see him. Like, obviously, like you say, for the foundation, there's quite a few pre-events and post-events and stuff. So there was the evening with Jurgen Klopp and some of the players on the Thursday night, and then on the Friday they went down to some places around Anfield and like met some of the kids and stuff like that. And you see him obviously meet some of the press as well. And yeah, it all just clicked back into place quite seamlessly about him and who he is. And obviously he's said some great things about Mo Salah, but the fist pumps. Like, honestly,
I didn't see it.
You missed it.
That's what the little man was nice. So I like, you know, I never, ever, ever in a normal game beat the traffic, and in fact actively take the piss out of people that do. But you know, there was a little insight into why some people maybe do, because when you got a 5-year-old who, you know, you want to get home and all the rest of it. So no, I bailed on about whatever it was, 87, 88, because I did literally want to beat the traffic. And I didn't want him to be like, you know, be getting jostled around and all the rest of it.
What had been a good moment.
So, and plus he was literally going, Dad, are we going? So eventually it was sort of like, all right, yeah. But yeah, you know, brilliant to have him back around, obviously, and just a reminder of what a great fella he is, and the charisma that he's got, and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's just difficult. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talking about, you know, because this conversation that we're having now has been had a million times over, because he was back around and he did interviews and he's in the spotlight again, and there's loads of content everywhere. And like, I've seen quite a few people saying, you know, we do have to, as hard as it is, try and get over him. And I think it is hard to.
Yeah.
You know, if we're all being honest, it is hard to, because he was so perfect with Liverpool. I thought it was telling, by the way, that there was something I did see with him. You know, for all that he's hugs, smiles, and visiting all the, you know, various people and brilliant stuff, and, you know, whose heart isn't warmed by him, you know, hugging all the you know, the women who work at the club and all that kind of stuff. Brilliant, like. But there was a bit where, I can't remember what it was on, where he was sort of saying something along the lines of, I think it was where he maybe got asked about, you know, coming back, not to Liverpool specifically, but that type of job. And he was saying something like, there's a part of being Jurgen Klopp where it's not so cool. And it's back to what we just talked about a second ago, isn't it? You know, like, everyone permanently, everywhere you go, wants a piece of you, wants some of the action. Yeah, and it's just sort of like, that must be tiring, you know what I mean? And like, to always present, or always try to present, a good version of yourself. You know, we all have moods, we all have days where you didn't get as much kip as you wanted, we all have other stuff going on in life. He's sort of not allowed, is he?
No.
You know, he's got to turn on the Jurgen Klopp charm at every turn. And look, he was always gonna be happy and smiley and all the rest of it, coming back to Liverpool and doing this kind of work. But does he want it every day? And let's remember, you know, towards the end, there were times where he looked so done. Do you know what I mean? He really did. You know, I can remember, I think it was maybe like Wolves away or something. I remember just looking at him in the dugout thinking, you fucking hate this. You know, you're done. You're done. You've had enough here.
And I think that's the thing that will maintain, for all of the love that we would have to see him come back, and for all of the fact that those days, like Saturday and this whole week, make you think that he would still be able to do it. I think when you make that decision to step away, there are reasons for it, and I don't think those reasons have changed. In fact, if anything, it's got worse.
Well, he talked about his wife and all that, and his grandkids and stuff. That they got to mention again and again. That's important. It's important to, you know, like, Brian, it was, funnily enough, when we were filming that Your Round in the week, he said to me, like, you know, we were having a bit of a chat before we started filming. He said to me, how old are you now then? And I said, I'm 50 in June. And he's like, you know, more behind you than there is at Eddie. Then he's like, you know, there's time to think about. He said, he was like, I'm 10 years and a bit on from you. And he said, what you'll find is, he said, as you start to go through, you're like, I've got no time for that prick, and I've got no time for that prick, and they can get out. You know, I only want these people, and I don't want them people. Absolutely. I've got no time for them, and I think, you know, Jurgen will have been experiencing a similar thing. Like, you know, I want to see my wife, I want to see my kids, I want to see the grandkids, and I don't want to have to deal with Des Kelly as an example, who's an absolute helmet. But shout out to Jack McLaren, who's thrown in a fiver on the super chat, super thanks, whatever it's called this week. Jack says, did you see the interview when he was asked how important it is for a Liverpool manager to get the city and the culture? I didn't, to be honest.
So the funny thing about is that the person who asked that question, Sam, worked for This Is Anfield, and this is Anfield who I was working for.
Oh, Sam Milne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had a nice little chat with him about that. And what he said is that basically Jurgen Klopp didn't answer that question because he knew that question would be weaponized against him, or not necessarily against him, but against Arne Slot. And it was notable that there had been a communication gone round saying that Mo Salah was the only current player that Jurgen Klopp would talk about. Good. Because he's not interested in creating headlines for against him. And look, obviously last year he did the thing where he talked about Trent, and obviously he feels quite close to Trent, obviously, like, you know, father-son type thing. So when fans were booing him, he was going to come out and say, no, that's wrong, I don't believe in that. But that felt like a special case. I don't think he's always going to come out and say this, that, and the other. So yeah, it was clear that there had been conversations that to say that let's concentrate on the reason we're here. And obviously people are always going to try and do that because that's what good journalists do. You try to get an angle. But yeah, as we said, he's too smart for that shit.
Yeah, I think that was right as well. You know, he wasn't here for that. He was here for the right reasons. He was here to help raise money for the foundation, and he's not here to try and pile more pressure onto the manager or you know, we all know the situation. We've all talked about the situation. We've all got irate about the situation. And you know, him sort of, you know, adding to that, you know, and also with the strengthening that you're referencing as well, I think that sort of drew a bit of ire from some people about sort of like, don't tell us how to behave. And, you know, the last thing you want is people saying against him as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah. So, you know, wherever that diktat came from, I think it was probably the right one. Yeah. That's sensible PR, sensible comms, sensible management of the situation. And yeah, fair play. I think, you know, Dirk answered something more along the lines of about the current manager and the pressure, didn't he? But even then, it was fairly straight back stuff. And look, like I say, it's just not for that. As you say, I totally get that the people who are employed to get stories, get headlines, and get hits are going to ask these questions. I mean, you only have to look at Vinny every week, who's asked to ask the Sky Sports question, and he's dead behind the eyes when he's doing so, because he's like, I'm just going to get punched in the face by the manager. I mean, you know, Jurgen literally got him in a headlock on the training ground once to say, like, you know, you. But, you know, Jurgen knows how it works, and so does Vinny, and he's got to do it. I mean, I can remember going to one of the pre-season tours, and, you know, on the pre-season tours, the access, as so many people like to reference, is actually relaxed a bit. Yeah. And so the club recognised that, you know, if a fan media organisation has made the time and effort to go all the way to Hong Kong, it's no big deal if they sit in a press conference. And so, you know, got to sit in, and it was funny, that was around the time that all the speculation was about Coutinho. Every day was Coutinho. Every story, every headline, Coutinho. And like, I remember Matt McCann just come out and said, he's not going to talk about Coutinho. He's not going to answer any questions about Coutinho. Right, let's start the press conference. Question 1, Coutinho. It's just like, fucking hell. well. And he, like, you know, and he kicked off, Jurgen. He's like, we just said we're not talking about. I'm not going to say anything different. I'm going to tell you anything new. If you're doing your job, you think you're doing your job by asking, it's sound. But, you know, like, if we said, I think he said some mad thing about, if we said don't talk about butter, would you then talk about butter or something like that?
That's very Jurgen, isn't it?
You know what I mean? And it was great, but it also shown you as well. That was another little sort of mini moment of, and we saw it loads of times. He just got pissed off with all that, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, the amount of interviews they've got to do before, after, and like, you know, it's like, you know, moving from one camera to the next camera to the next camera into the print. Then it's like, you know, when you're doing the ones at the weekend, then it's like, you know, the dailies and then the Sundays and save this from, you know, and it's like, must just be, you know, it must just grind, but it does grind you down. I mean, you know, how many Liverpool managers have we seen all fresh-faced and looking boss when they come in and then they're like broken man by the end. I mean, I've just seen someone in the comments there saying, you know, Jurgen looked 10 years younger. Well, yeah, because he's been knocking around with sun on his face.
Exactly.
And, you know what I mean? And just, you know, without all the stress of all this. So I'd be surprised if he wanted to dive straight back in. Thanks to JJ, 30,000, a regular in the comments, who I regularly... You'll have to clarify one day how I'm saying your name, just so I don't have to always do that embarrassing thing. But throwing a tenner in, so thank you. And it says, broadly agree with you on Jurgen. He's done with the intensity of managing us. However, I wonder if FSG may think of offering him a long-term role as sporting director one day. Thought?
Well, I mean, I guess that's not a million miles away from the role he's doing at Red Bull now, is it? But it's more just he's a wider consultant than he.
And he flits round, isn't he? He's not sat there looking at you.
No,
because I kind of think he's too big of a figure. That's the issue, isn't it? Yeah. Can you imagine, like, you know, like this summer as an example? Let's just play out the scenario. We know it won't be a thing, but, you know, can you imagine they say, yeah, we're keeping Arne Slot on as head coach. We're getting rid of Michael Edwards and we're getting rid of Richard Hughes and we're bringing Jurgen in. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Face the feet, swap those roles, get rid of it. You know what I mean? It would just be carnage. So
and he's too smart for that. I think I wouldn't put it past him when the sad day comes that Kenny decides he just wants to knock around with his family and not do so much for the club. I feel that's the role for Jurgen, to take over there as the general, because at the moment he's the ambassador for the foundation. I can see him becoming a wider general LFC ambassador. Maybe not now, maybe 5-10 years down the road.
We've got a shout in the comments as well that they'd like us to give a nod to the wise old owl, the face rubber in chief, back in management, the Hodge.
Look, I've got some friends who support Bristol City, all right, so I'm not going to rub it in for them.
I've got to say, like I saw a clip on social media and it made me laugh because he was there in training. And, like, you know, he hit a through ball to, like, one of the strikers. He put it in and, like, he was like, sign him off and all this. And I was like, yeah, right now, lads, you might see this as a positive, and you might look at his CV and you might say he was England manager and you might say he did this and that and Inter Milan and all the rest of it. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Just you wait.
Honestly, the thing that I keep thinking about whenever he comes back, and the same with Neil Warnock, is their wives must absolutely fucking hate them.
or maybe not. Maybe they're glad to get them up.
That's what I mean. Because they keep saying, "Oh yeah, take that job."
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you meant because they kept taking the job.
Oh no, they're sending them off gleefully. Absolutely. We are nearing the end of the show, and I'm aware there's still quite a lot in the agenda to get into. So I'm going to go to Man City stuff. Because Liverpool are going to have to start playing football again soon. Yeah. Sorry to break it to everyone. And the first game back is Man City in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. So far, Liverpool played City twice this season, got beat both times. Slightly different feelings for both games. Obviously, the first game away from home was just a terrible day at the office, a bad day to be there. And then the game at home,
Haaland never meant that header.
He did not. It hit him in the face. He had no kind of direction whatsoever, and I will go to my grave believing that.
Yeah, I'll die on that hill as well.
And then obviously the one at Anfield where Liverpool struggle, then get themselves into a winning position, and then it all just falls apart. Look, I know that we are nowhere near being in a position to say Liverpool have shown me enough to believe this and this and this. But I'm just not ready to give up on the idea of them winning this game,
No, of course not, and you shouldn't do. Look, we've always got hope as football fans, and that's why we keep coming back year after year, game after game. And, you can throw it all up in the air and say no chance and all that. But look, I look at it and think, well, Man City aren't the best version of themselves. They're not the greatest Man City you've ever seen. No. I thought how they turned it on in the second half against Arsenal was pretty good, but it also said a lot about Arsenal and Arteta and the stuff that we've criticised them for before. And look, if Liverpool go in, if Liverpool can find some energy in the legs and some clarity in the mind, I think we can go and get something. But where the struggle with it a little bit is, I kind of get the impression that they've done all the little things that you might do to revive a season already. Do you know what I mean? They've done the, let's have a meeting, lads, and let's try and pump each other up, lads. And I'm sure all of the coaches, including Arna, have tried a million and one different things to pump them up. What you're looking at now, lads, is last chance saloon. Do you know what I mean? You've got this and you've got PSG, and then that's it. And if you go out to both of those competitions, it's just a little trudge to the end of the season, and it'll be pretty grim. So I'd love them to keep the season alive. I'd love to see them. At times they have, and I always find myself I'm questioning myself to say the cliche again, but here it is. I'd love to see them come out the trap.
Yeah.
And they have, haven't they? It's in them. They're capable of it. They did it against Galatasaray. We can do them down as an opposition all we like, but just having that little bit more oomph about you and the concentration and this is for us, lads. This is the one, but. You've had all the complications of, it's still ongoing international football, which I haven't engaged with whatsoever, and I've really enjoyed it. I don't even know what the scores are. Some
of our lads have done all right. So Ekitike scored against Brazil.
I seen that actually, yeah. And Vert as well.
Yeah, he got 2 goals, 2 assists against Switzerland. Looking good, playing off the left. Van Dijk got a goal as well. Germany are playing again tonight, for any of you who are interested in having a look at him. But yeah, I just think that Liverpool, like you say, they haven't really got much else to go on here. I think most people are assuming that PSG is going to be an uphill battle. City, after they haven't got midweek football because unfortunately they're already out of Europe, but they do have 2 big league games against Chelsea and then Arsenal on the horizon. So I do think it gets to a point where Liverpool can say that this means more to us than them. Bit of desire, like you say, a bit of energy. Taking your chances early, massive. And
to be honest, I'll just take effort. I'll just take right attitude and effort. And if we get knocked out, we get knocked out. But if I see that, I'll be happy with it. Because I think that you can question both at times in many games this season. And that's what's been really worrying. So, collectively, they need to get themselves in the right place and show what they're really about. And, I want to do another video where I'm saying I've just seen the real Liverpool again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen the real Liverpool too many times this season.
Could they please stand up? Talking about what things they could do to get a jolt of energy, something like that. Well, there is also the chance that this Mo Salah stuff might work. Hopefully. We don't know if he's going to be fit to play in this game. Obviously,
do it for Mo.
Yeah,
do it for Mo.
Do it for Mo and
Mo Molam
and all the other Mo's as well. And perhaps there are other people in the dressing room who have not made it public yet who are also feeling similar. That this is, the last chance, the last run as part of this team, part of this squad. So yeah, maybe look, I didn't want to have to evoke this, but I'm gonna. The last time Liverpool played Man City in the FA Cup, we beat them. You and I were together at Wembley, and it was a great day. Any hopes we could do that again? That would be wonderful. Please. Look, I've said too much already. Do you think it's time to bring our special guest in?
Indeed. I can see him outside. He's looking in right at us. Scouse musical legend, Scouse musical royalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Something we've been trying to do things a little bit different on this show, as you noticed. We had the midweek show as Robbo mentioned before, and for our subscriber show today, we're doing something different. We've got a special guest interviewee, and here he comes, Mr.
Hello.
Edgar Jones. Well, we call you Scouse musical royalty. You'd probably disagree with it, but damn it, we're going to tell you that anyway.
Thank you. I thank you.
This man has worked with so many wonderful people who you have heard of, like Paul Weller, Johnny Marr, Ian McCulloch, and Etienne, but also part of the Liverpool fabric. I mean, you were a member of the Lars. You've worked with people who ended up in the Zootons, the Stans, the Carol, and on and on and on. But
what about his own stuff?
I was going to say, that's before we
one
even
of the
get
best albums ever to come out of this city, which is that Mexican R&B. Get on it if you're not on it already.
And so we're going to get you in. We're going to talk a little bit about your career, but we're also going to get you to play some songs, aren't we?
Oh, we definitely are. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Stop me.
Honestly, like, this has been a long time in the making. Like, obviously you and I know each other quite well, but he's been banging on about you for as long as I can remember. And so for all of you out there who maybe don't know as much about Edgar as we do, you're in for an absolute treat on our subscriber show. Come on over to that. We're going to be doing that probably about 10 minutes from now. Once we finish this one, you know where to find us over on Patreon. You can come over. It will cost you a very, very, very small amount.
Someone in the comments thought we were going to reveal Scylla.
You got any Scylla covers in you?
To be disappointment, lad. I can sing for him, you know.
Well, I mean, listen, you were telling me earlier that like one of your new projects is about turning into multiple voices. So
pretending to be a sort of Detroit mid-60s vocal group. I've even got a name for them.
Oh yeah,
the Fantastics.
Nice.
I love that. So tell the people out there a little bit more where they can find out, because you've got various releases on various places.
Yeah, I wasn't great at self-promotion. I'm so into music that I forget about the other stuff that you'd have to do with it a lot of the time. So I've only just in the past 5 years settled on the name Edgar Jones all the time. I've been Summertime, Jones, the Aldebayoff, Sachlas, the Demiurge. No.
Are we going to get into your multiple names?
Yeah, that's bad, really. So as a result, I've always kind of flown under the radar. But, you know, if you search me out, you'll find something good, I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as I say, you're going to be singing for us as well later on. Do you want to get people aware of where they can find your latest releases?
Well, the latest one was on AV8. It's kind of like a Scouse label that's based down south. It was an LP called Documents. It was like a live in the studio LP that kind of documented what I'd been doing solo on stage for a few years, and it was really well timed because I changed things up just afterwards. Like went on a tour with Robert Cray, and I discovered stomping, but it's not like them nasty boys on Lime Street. I do it rather tastefully, you know, because I have a sort of knowledge of the lineage, you know. So,
I'm really looking forward to that. I was going to ask about that actually, because I've not seen one of those live. I say,
not many people use them in this country. You get blues and you know Americana things using them in the States a lot, but I've kind of got you know.
Well, you know what you need to do if you want to hear more from Edgar and you want to hear and see him in action later on. We're looking forward to this so much. I cannot wait. This is possibly going to be the shortest break between the live show and subscriber show we've ever had, because we're just desperate to get into it. But for now, we will say fare thee well. Thank you all for watching as ever. We'll be back very soon on the subscriber show. Hopefully you will be too.
Bossness.